Okay. Welcome. This is Erin Mahone. Welcome to the 10th episode of the If You Could See Me podcast. I am here today with my guest, Crissy Keye Rollins. And she is a holistic healer and a coach and a mindset expert. And I'm really excited to have you here today, Crissy. Thank you. I know that it was a little bit challenging. We rescheduled a couple of times entirely due to my insane schedule. So thank you for your flexibility.
Yes, absolutely. I'm honored to be here, and I'm very excited for this conversation today.
Thank you so much. So I want to start with you are an incredibly nurturing spirit. When I had to reschedule with you a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, the way that you responded to my sort of manic, frenetic energy was so kind and so loving. And I want to know how you came to find yourself in that space. You can't have always been so patient and loving. That had to have been something you've learned.
Yes, well, thank you so much for your kind words and for just really seeing and sensing that from our engagement, because we've been communicating over, kind of text message, Facebook messaging, and a lot can be lost in translation. So I'm really honored to know that's the sense and the feeling that you got from my words. And yes, it is a conscious choice that I make to respond that way. And I think that the real shift started to happen for me when I realized that I alone am responsible for what experience I have in any given situation. And when I made this connection, I also made a commitment to become the safest person for me to be around. So that requires that when life goes off course, that I look at it from the position of, how can I have the best experience of me as I go through this event? So while anytime that any feelings step forward that are not enjoyable, like the frustration or the agitation or whatever, human angst that comes forward when life starts to go off course, I've just reconditioned myself to use that as a cue that however I'm perceiving the situation is not an accurate perception of myself within it. And then when I connect back to myself and kind of go from the inside out back into the situation instead of just this outside circumstances and how is that making me feel within, then I open up the door to having a lot more options in how I respond. And it definitely is a skill set that I've developed. I am somebody who is naturally predisposed to kind of, see the silver lining or be that positive perspective person, but it definitely did not come as my natural response until I started to realize I can have the experience that it appears to be, or I can decide who I am within that experience and then rewrite the story from there.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
It feels like work. And I say that because I am a person who lives with anxiety disorder, and I definitely have worked, for many years on, mindfulness and self-compassion and, embracing the moment, whatever the moment may be, and all of the things that you're discussing. But I know that there are still those moments, such as, on the other side, when I was really worried about, your perception of the situation and, my being afraid that I was taking advantage of your time and, that how I would be perceived in a professional light, in a personal light. And when you are on the other side of this conversation, and maybe you're in the position where you have to cancel on somebody or where something comes up, what is your self-talk in those moments?
Yes, absolutely. Such great questions and insights to bring to life. So in those moments where we're feeling like if I were to show up for an appointment that I set aside time in my life, I'm taking time away from my family, it's something that I've worked into my schedule, and then the other person cancels last minute, to me, it brings forth this feeling like perhaps my time isn't honored. Perhaps this wasn't as important to the other person. Perhaps I'm not being respected or treated the way that I anticipated. Mm-hmm. And when that was the first feeling to come forward, then in any time that the first feeling to come forward is one that feels non-harmonious or one that I enjoy, quite frankly, then I'll take a step back and I'll say, well, what do I know as an absolute truth? What I know as an absolute truth is that this woman has a heart of service if she is taking her time to create a podcast, to interview people, to help other people. So is her intention to set up time with me just to give me the runaround? Or is she coming from a place, because I've been there many times, where I had an intention to follow through on something and life just took me in another direction? And what were the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions that were going through me? And how would I like somebody to respond to me in those moments? So when I connected back to, there was this first initial moment of, oh my gosh, seriously, I just set aside an hour of my time because I'm a full-time stay-at-home, work-at-home mom. That means if I'm not taking care of my daughter, I'm serving my clients or trying to make a little window to, be a wife along with this whole, the rest of the story of who Crissy is and what she's doing in the world. Right. So, and especially becoming a more seasoned business owner, I'm going into my 12th year of entrepreneurship. So I look at my time, my schedule, my commitments in a much different way than I did when I was early in the game and not really understanding how my showing up or not showing up could affect another person. So I was able to just connect, like kind of do what we cliche say all the time, put myself in somebody else's shoes. Right. I felt that you're somebody who had good intentions. I felt that you were somebody who the last thing that you would want to do is cancel or reschedule. So I trusted you and I just went along with the perception of you that kept a more accurate honoring of the person that I am. So I saw you as someone who felt horrible that things went off course. The last thing you would want to do is disappoint, let somebody down, or make them feel like they're wasting their time. So I made the conscious choice to extend to you the same grace that I would like extended, and to not allow myself to jump into these misperceptions about you, because all that does is change the story of who I am in the equation. And if I see myself as someone who is moving forward, that's being backed by the universe, that is in alignment with her goal and destiny, then when upsets happen along the way, I realize that sometimes it's for me to have grace extended to me, and sometimes it's for me to extend the grace to others. Mm-hmm. And when I can do that, just know, I felt amazing after responding to you and saying, this is the way that life goes. I appreciate your desire to serve. I know how frustrating it can be. Let's find another time. It made me feel much better about the experience. And this may sound like selfish in a sense, but that's really what I'm most committed to is right. How am I experiencing myself in this situation? Because if Aaron never reaches back out to me again, I'm still left with me. Right. No, absolutely. So yes. And learning to bring this heart-centered compassion, empathy, grace, understanding, support, love to other people, I think has been something that we're very supported to do in our society. But this caveat of turning that same love, grace, support, compassion back to ourselves mm-hmm. has been left out of the equation. And as I started to make it my focus, not only to bring that out into the world, but then to include myself as part of who I'm bringing it to, then it really was a complete and total game changer. And I do understand what you're saying about it sounds like a lot of work, because your mind's not conditioned to move in the same series of thoughts that I've kind of reconditioned my mind to go through. But really, in the end, it takes no less effort to think a positive thought than a non-serving thought. It's just a matter of where are you in the habit of looking? And I've shifted myself from looking at all the ways that life's working against me to all the ways that this could possibly be life setting me up for something better.
Right.
So I think I'm going to go to an interview. Life decides, nope, you get the opportunity to be an angel extending grace and to not lose sight of your worth and value, regardless of what a situation appears like, and then wait to see what the next unfolding is. And when I bring that curiosity, that I wonder how life is setting me up for something better, again, no less effort as far as efforting on my part. And it actually creates this stillness, this settledness in this space that allows for me to be more productive, to have more energy, to just move more freely within my own life amongst all the happenings, all the commitments. And as you start to settle down these narratives and storylines that run through our mind, then it's amazing how much space opens up around us. Time moves differently. Your productivity within that time moves differently. Your experience of you changes. Absolutely. And this has been like the most powerful endeavor that I've ever taken on. And it's completely radicalized my practice, my experience with my client, my primary relationship with my husband, my relationship with my finances. I mean, every one of those big key core life components has shifted because I've shifted how I see myself within each and every single one of those aspects. And I've made a more congruent story about myself amongst all those different external situations that just allows for more peace within myself.
Right. So you've moved seamlessly into the primary element of this conversation that I was curious to talk to you about. The message that I have been trying to share over the past several years and even more now that my projects have really sort of taken off is that, when we are able to make peace with our own story and show kindness and compassion to ourselves and love to ourselves and change the way that we talk to ourselves about what we are worthy of and entitled to and all of those pieces, we innately, almost automatically become more compassionate to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I see it as the key to sort of massive change within the world. This new project that I'm starting is called Stories for Change. And I'm working with, among other groups, a group of 8th through 12th graders from underserved neighborhoods in the cities of Richmond, Virginia, and working with them to learn to write and tell a story with the purpose of, affecting change within their communities, to learning to tell their stories and talk about their experiences in a way that says, this is who I am, this is how I feel, this is, how my life would be better if, and learning to become their own best self-advocates in the process. And I'm really curious to know, because of your very unique experience, how you see this concept, how you see the capacity for large-scale social change, global change, when we can, one person at a time, one decision at a time, make a different choice about how we react and how we respond to other people. You said just right there that your first instinct, you haven't erased that initial instinct to get annoyed, or that is still there, that is still part of your very human experience. You just recognized it and then made a decision to give me the benefit of the doubt. And that is something that, if we all made the decision to give one another the benefit of the doubt, I think all of our relationships could improve. And not only that, I think that, people from very different backgrounds could begin to come together and have more dialogue because they are willing to see each other as human beings doing the best they can.
Absolutely. And I just have chills head to toe hearing you say all of that. Yes. I don't know if that answers your question, but yes. So the top things that come to my mind is this: other people's processes are not personal.
Right.
So when we experience somebody else going through a process, we have the opportunity to recognize that what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're reacting is not personal to us, even if it feels like a personal attack towards us. And what I have found is that since I've been, experimenting with this, is really is what it is, an experiment. I thought, this sounds like a worthwhile endeavor to explore. Let me see what happens. And it has been so beneficial that I've just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into that proverbial rabbit hole of self-love and radical acceptance, and this whole idea of what if there's not a single conflict or a single misunderstanding that happens in the world that could not be resolved by a higher level of communication. Yeah. And that communication is what we step into when we can move past what it appears like somebody's doing and just take a moment to ask what their intention is. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, again, connect back to what I know to be true. I know that I don't know you, but I know that your intention for connecting with me came from a genuine place. And if not, that's not my business.
Right.
It really is not my business. So whenever I come into a conflict, I go back to what I know to be true, even if it's, dealing with my husband. What do I know true to be about this man who's coming across in this, out of integrity manner, in a way that seems like it's attacking towards me in some form or fashion. And what I find whenever I reconnect back to the fact that this is my husband who loves me, then I can either better align what I am witnessing to what I know to be true about him, which is that he wants what's best for me first and foremost. So sometimes he gets so passionate about it, his passion comes across expressed more like anger because he's frustrated I'm not getting the best in life. And if I just go off of his actions instead of really understanding where it's coming from, it was causing just a ton of misinterpretations. He wasn't being received. He felt like he was constantly fighting for me and I was constantly shutting him down. But now I can say, I can see you are really frustrated by this experience that you're having. I am so sorry that it is frustrating to you. But at least now I know where you're coming from. Right. You care so much, and that's remarkable. And from there, he's given another option in how he's going to show up. And literally every single time that I do this, he doesn't step towards the narcissistic, abusive labeling that his actions could appear like. He always returns to a tender, loving, compassionate human. Right. And it's got me thinking and kind of experimenting with this whole, because, there's a big buzz that's happening with us super big feelers and people that are dealing with anxiety and these tumultuous relationships. There's a lot of talk around the narcissistic relationship or the narcissist empath relationship. And while I am stepping into the realm of exploring this deeper, I am exploring from the hypothesis, if we want to look at it from a scientific standpoint, of what if there are no narcissists? What if there are only big feeling people? Right. And some of those big feeling people have learned to adapt and to cope and to survive in this world by being the one who has the most aggressive display of behaviors. And when I look at any kind of narcissistic display and speak to the human that is making these choices, that human always turns out to be a very compassionate, well-intended person. Right. Now, again, I haven't dealt with every single narcissistic person on this planet. This has just been in my own little circle. But I've seen enough of a drastic change within my own relationship that it really has sparked a genuine curiosity, and I'm excited to explore it further, because it just lines up better with what I believe we all came here to do. And when you talk about making world change, that's a really grand vision that many of us currently have. Mm-hmm. Well, when we think about changing the world, what does that really mean? And the way that I look at it as, in order to change this external world, I have to start with my world. Exactly. I have to start with the world that is unfolding before my eyes with every step that I take, every move that I make, everywhere that I go. Mm-hmm. So when I stop trying to change this external world that I was interacting with, and I instead focused on this internal world that was happening within me as I was moving through this external world.
Right.
And I looked to get that more in alignment with the set of beliefs and philosophies that I had adopted over the years. I was able to better fully integrate the philosophies. I could, be that almost cliched now Gandhi quote of being the change that you
right.
wish to see in the world.
I hear you.
And I have found that shifting my world, my very presence, has a more powerful impact than any amount of doing good in the world from this past perspective of let me change what's happening out here to have
right.
a more peaceful environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I constantly have conversations with my children and the folks that I work with in the mental health world, and even my own mother who lives with bipolar disorder. And the thing that I always tell them, which is very simple, but you don't have any control over what other people do. Mm-hmm. All you have control over is how you react to the situation in front of you. Mm-hmm. And so when you say, you made me mad, it's your mm-hmm. fault that I reacted that way, or, you're not making yourself accountable for your own decisions. And when we talk about, or for your own behavior, which is, ultimately going back to, where you started, your behavior is a choice. Our behavior is a choice. The way we react to the world is a choice. And when we slow down enough to be able to recognize our patterns and recognize ourselves reacting to the world instead of responding to it, mm-hmm. We end up, repeating those same destructive behaviors. And it's very, very difficult to, get that across to a person who is not, who is very much stuck in that place of, victimhood or blame, or, wanting to look externally for the cause of their own pain. And I'm curious to know how you address that with your coaching clients and your healing practice.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I think has really led us astray is this belief that we can hit this point of enlightenment or evolution or changing ourselves to where we free ourselves of all the feels. Mm-hmm. And that is just not how this human experience works. Right. One of the ways that we interact with this physical world is through our emotions, and we carry with us an emotional intelligence. Our internal dialogue, our internal physical sensations, our pains, our discomfort, our endless inner chatter, our voice that whispers, in our favor, all of that's happening inside of us. It is an intuitive tool for us to use to better decipher and negotiate our way and to navigate our way through society. But as a society as a whole, we are not taught that we are emotional beings. We are taught that we interpret the world through our five senses, that if you can't see, touch, feel it, it must not be, an actual reality. And we're also taught that all the answers that we need lie outside of ourselves. Right. So we're given all of these emotions. Women are given the card to feel everything, but then it's kind of used against us, right? Because, there they go feeling everything. Right. And the men in our society have been done a disservice because they're not allowed to feel anything except for anger. So all of their emotions come out in this aggressive manner if, they can even express them. And of course, when I say all, I'm generalizing. There are exceptions within all of this, but for the most part, this is what we've been dealt with. So men haven't been taught how to use their emotions. They're not even allowed to express their emotions. So when women get into their emotions, now all these emotions start coming up in the men. Right. And now women must resuppress their emotions so that they don't set off kilter the men that are around them. Right. And it is this really disease-causing cycle of holding back, not understanding, and misinterpreting the sensations, the thoughts, the emotions that are coming up inside of you. So the first thing I do is I help my clients understand, first of all, welcome to the human experience. Right. It is full of all the emotions. You're going to have all the feels, but just like a roller coaster, it's not all going to be thrilling. It's not all going to be a boring wait in line, and it's not all going to make you want to throw up. but you're going to get a little bit of all of that. So, and just like a roller coaster, all of that's going to pass and then repeat. And that's just the game that we signed up for. Like it or not, it's how it works. Now that we understand that's how it works, now we can start to look at our emotions and build a relationship with them, begin to better understand them. What are they telling us? What are they indicating within us? And what I found is that when I look at my emotions through the perspective of this being my intuition helping to guide and navigate my course, then I can more likely get to the truth of a situation or to a story or narrative that more aligns with my conscious beliefs. And it allows my conscious beliefs to just integrate and settle in that much deeper. I kind of look at it like we add all this information on top of us, and then it's got to settle its way down to the core of our being. Well, as it's settling its way down, it's going to bring to surface anything that's unlike it. And if we are not supported in understanding that that surfacing of emotions is a healing, purging process, we can mistake it to be the onset of something new, a start of another cycle. Here we go again. What did I do wrong this time? Right. So I flip that story around. And I say, with every tear that you shed, with every fear that you feel in your heart, that is one less tear to shed, one less fear that you will feel as you are bringing and liberating yourself of this emotional imprinting. And it's going to feel the same way coming out as it does coming in. This helps to better understand the massive amounts of overwhelm that you can experience when you're having anxiety type struggles. Because I know for myself, I spent a couple of years of my life dealing with massive anxiety that was grossly disproportionate to what was actually happening in my life. Mm-hmm. And being someone who could sit here and say, I have an abundance of blessings. I am very grateful for all that is going well in my life, but I still can't get over this feeling of drastically not wanting to be on this earth anymore. Mm-hmm. Then being able to understand the empathic ways that us humans are, being able to understand my part in this collective human consciousness, being able to understand that in order for me to live into the vision and the path that I'm called to follow, this is what I must free myself of. And as I'm freeing it from myself, I'm also helping to liberate from the collective human consciousness. So then I can be a steward of the emotions that come to me. It doesn't mean that I stop them. It doesn't mean I don't feel them. It just means I focus my attention on loving the one who is feeling what she is feeling, and I don't add angst to an already frustrating situation by making her wrong for feeling it. Right. And that every single time, Erin, I mean, this is 100% across the board. It doesn't always zap me immediately into feel good, let me go and join a kick line. It doesn't always necessarily get me there. But at least amongst the frustration, the agitation, life going off rails, I am not making myself wrong as I go through it. And I can understand that in this moment, I am being asked to be a steward of what I'm feeling, because life knows I'll be responsible with the choices and not do something drastic where somebody else who just would have been pushed over the edge is getting a moment of relief while I'm taking on this feeling for them. Now, mind you, I have zero scientific evidence that this is both happening, but I can tell you that story alone, it alleviates me to where I have a different choice, and it just puts it just way more into alignment about what I believe we're all here to collectively do together.
Well, there is so much science that has been done around mindfulness and around self-compassion and around meditation and the changes that all causes in the body. And what you're talking about is really in alignment with that, is just, just allowing, is just, not labeling, not judging, not resisting whatever is happening around you, just acknowledging that it's happening, recognizing it, and then, understanding why it's happening. And, maybe there is not scientific evidence around exactly what you're talking about, the specific to how you are describing it. But I think that on a broader, more global level, there are, millions of practitioners of this, in some way, shape, or form all over the world for the last, for hundreds of years, but, for the last 50 years, really. So, I, in our last just, few minutes that we have, I would love to hear more about your personal mental health journey and the specific practices that you have undertaken to, move yourself into this, seemingly very healthy place. So.
Well, thank you. Yes. So one of the biggest shifters for me with my mental health process was understanding that this too shall pass.
Right.
So in those moments when an anxiety attack would come on, this was the very last anxiety attack that I've had, and it's been a number of years now. In the moment, I connected to what I knew to be true. I understood what was happening, and I could focus on breathing. And focusing on my breath and breathing myself back to the present moment has been one of the go-to tools that I have used. When I feel the angst arise, when I feel the frustration, I take a deep breath. A lot of times it's just natural, like a, kind of frustrated sigh, but that gets my attention, and I consciously breathe in and I breathe out. And as I breathe out, I feel myself kind of grounding into the present moment. And I say to myself, okay, how do I want to be spoken to? Let me respond that way. How do I want to have this situation be? Let me respond in that sense. And it allows me to break that automatic default knee-jerk reaction. And just that breath gets me back connected to myself. It reminds me that that's my only true possession. So there's nothing that can be added to me, taken away from me, that will ever change my value. And it just gets me back centered into myself and allows me to make a conscious choice moving forward. So connecting to my breath, even in moments where I am dealing with an undesirable situation with another person, say maybe there's like a verbal attack happening, or maybe they're just venting or feeling frustrated and saying unkind things about me, because usually I can handle venting, but whenever it starts to talk about how I'm the problem, that's usually where I have that little inner stirring, like, well, wait a second, mister, right? So in those moments, focusing on my breath has been key. So instead of focusing on what am I going to say to defend myself, how am I going to respond to this, how am I going to prove myself, giving up proving myself, like giving up needing to change somebody else's narrative, change their experience that they're having, proving to them that what they're saying about me isn't true. That is so exhausting, and it really doesn't work.
It doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't work. It just really doesn't work, because you say your part, all that they do is go back to their part. So right. When I focus on just breathing, and I focus on the fact that even if somebody is being aggressive and they're sharing, if they're sharing with me, there is some level of trust that that person has with me. So I just anchor into an appreciation that they have the trust for me, that they are sharing as honestly as they are. And I just focus on breathing, and I don't try to change their story. I acknowledge that they're having a frustrating experience, and I am able to not get intertangled with it. And that, again, it just took kind of that time. It took a lot of missing the mark. And I think that this is very important for people to understand. Typically, when we miss the mark, when we catch ourselves after the fact, that's when we start beating ourselves up.
Right.
I want you to, from now on, when you catch yourself after the fact, you start to celebrate that recognition. You celebrate it, because awareness is always the first step. And I could go on for hours about the importance of self-celebration, but I'll just leave it with that. When you catch yourself after the fact, know that means you're one step closer to catching yourself before it.
Right.
So for me, it was a series of catching myself after the fact, catching myself amongst it, catching myself right before I reacted. And now sometimes I'm like, well, how else would I respond? Right. Even though just a couple of years ago, I would have responded totally different. Mm-hmm. So that connection to my breath, that giving up defending myself, letting other people's experience be their experience, and really, Erin, just anchoring into my commitment. I realize nobody, and this is something I cannot do for my clients, nobody is going to make sure that Crissy has peace of mind.
Right.
Nobody's going to make sure that she's fulfilled. Nobody's going to make sure that she's happy. Nobody. It is my responsibility.
Right.
So when I just made it my commitment to keep my eyes kind of on my own paper in my own lane and focus on what I am feeling, what I am healing, what I am bringing to the world, and the storyline that is going along with the steps that I'm taking, then it was just a game changer, because I can more accurately take responsibility for what was for me to take ownership over. And I could let go of managing the emotions of other people. Right. And let me tell you, that is a game changer on so many levels. And maybe we can have another conversation, down the road about this, because that taking responsibility for my emotions, no longer managing the responsibility of others, in conjunction with all of this self-love and this self-focus over the last year, my body, my physical self, has transformed to be more in alignment with the woman that I self-identify as now. And I naturally, with absolute ease, without any effort, focus, thinking about it, dieting, restricting myself, anything, my body released 45 pounds since last year, this time, just as a natural side effect of my beingness. And I really believe that a big part of that was properly managing my own emotions and stop taking on the emotions of others, because that is very energetically draining. Yes. And I believe a lot of us are feeding ourselves to replenish that energy, and also to kind of build some physical barriers to keep ourselves protected. Yep. So I'm really interested this year moving forward, taking a little bit more look into this whole, what happens as a natural side effect when you shift the way that you self-identify. Because now I self-identify as an empowered woman who doesn't have it all figured out, but is pretty certain that what she's doing in life is having a powerful and beautiful effect within herself. And she's seeing this ripple effect out around her. Right. And when I put myself in a victimizing situation, or find myself in a victimizing situation, and I feel myself being victimized, I can reconnect with, well, am I a victim of my circumstances? No. I'm an empowered woman who's experiencing these circumstances. So how would an empowered woman respond? And it's a game changer. It's just a total game changer. And what's cool about it too, Erin, is that it's so subtle. Right. It's so subtle. Nobody knows that this is even happening, because we're all caught up in our own stuff. Right. And so it has a really profound and powerful effect on others, which is a beautiful bonus. But the peace and the settledness that I feel within myself, I really believe that that's what we want when we're working on that number on the scale, or that reflection in the mirror, or that number in the bank account.
That we don't want your value is not defined by the number in the scale and the number in the bank account.
Yes. And your fulfillment is not found there. Yes. But when you connect with your beingness and what I believe to be the truth about us, and you can allow your soul self to really integrate and settle into your physical self, and you can allow that partnership of your external self being the advocate for your internal self's desires and the one who's here to live them out loud, and you can trust yourself, and you can, just find this more settled space within you. Again, you free up a lot of space around you. You free up a lot of that energetic space. You free up a lot of mental space. You free up a lot of time space. Yep. And you actually have the power to transform your situation. And I have watched literal miracles, like where I am in the crux of a conflict in which I just say, I don't know what the resolution is, but I do know that I'm not going to abandon my beliefs in this moment to appease you. Within 30 minutes, every single time that I have found myself in this situation, the entire situation has changed.
Exactly.
And what that has led me to is an understanding that what the magic is behind all of this, what wins the energy game every single time, is our confidence. And as sensitive, big feeling humans, we have to be as confident and as certain about our power of compassion and grace and service as those that are certain and committed that their aggression and anger is the only way to go through life. Right. We have to be as committed as them to our stories. And too many of us, big feelers, get so caught up by what physically things look like that we abandon our story, we abandon our beliefs, we abandon ourselves, and we set ourselves up for this perpetual victim cycle. Right. When all it takes for me is anchoring into my confidence that I am onto something. Even if you can't see it, even if you can't touch it, even if you can't, put your physical hands on it right now, I know something to be true about this perspective.
No, you're absolutely right. I have, it's
that topples people over.
It does. But it's very funny because I've actually had this conversation with several people, in particular about social media and the ways in which, activist types such as myself and many of my friends choose to use the platform. And I've had so many conversations with people who say, you're not angry enough. And I'm like, no,
I'm surprised they haven't told me that.
No, actually, I'm plenty angry at the circumstances that, that I'm passionate about. I'm plenty angry that there are people in pain, that there are, systems that are broken, that there are unseen people in our world. I'm plenty angry about that. However, screaming and yelling and alienating everyone and everything around me, in my experience, is not the way to affect change. So
absolutely,
when I speaking to your be the change comment, that's actually is something that I say all the time, as cliche as it is. It is, I'm going to be the example for what I want the world to look like. And, if I do that and I welcome only, that type of energy, then ultimately I can have difficult conversations with all the people in my life who have, varying, positions and opinions about things. But I can't do that if I build up these walls and I put bullhorns outside of them and I'm just screaming and shouting. That doesn't cause, love to grow in the world.
Yeah. And, we really have enough people in the world that are against stuff.
Right. Exactly.
What I believe we need are people that are for stuff. Because there is a power in standing in a heart-centered, compassionate space. There is more power rooted in love than in hate any day of the week, any given situation. I mean, I am convinced of this in my own personal life, and I really believe it on a global and cultural level. We need more people that are standing for what they believe, and I think that this is part of the imbalance, is that over the past, there has been this more masculine expression of dominance. Now, it's not just the men that are doing it, but it's just this masculine, aggressive. Right. Yes. And there is a rise of this divine feminine energy that is coming into play. And there are some of us that are, kind of the on the forefront of it and really learning how to stand powerfully in compassion. And it is causing such powerful shifts that no amount of fighting could ever do. And we can even look again, we mentioned Gandhi. Why not bring up Mother Teresa? Right, exactly. She didn't go to your rallies against, she went to your rallies for. And I think that that's a very key thing. Don't fight against, or just consider. I always like to consider and invite people to explore. Consider, instead of going against the conflict, just standing firmly for what you are for, and allowing other people's opposition to just simply be an expression of how they experience the world, which has nothing to do with how you experience the world. And this whole idea of being the example, let's take it to the next level. And that's what I've done in my life. Now, instead of just being the example to the external world of how I'd like for people to be, I took it to the next level by also being the example of how I want to be treated. So I started treating myself the way that I desire others to treat me. And as I have cultivated a more connected, deeply supportive, loving relationship with myself, I don't even have to tell people how to treat me. They just naturally treat me way better than I ever experienced before. So and and I also have a detachment. I don't need in a conscious way, at least, because I know subconsciously we all need love and acceptance, but in a conscious way, I don't need your outward expression of approval of me. it will take any expression to have it as an opportunity to decide again, how am I going to see myself in this situation? And it's allowed me to shift how I attract clients, how I interact and collaborate or attract collaborative partners, how I attract opportunities, because my presence is something that people desire to have more of. They don't even know what it is. And I don't go out seeking. It's like just becoming a magnet all of a sudden. Now all these things, this whole law of attraction really comes into play. And I think it's time to move past this idea that we have to move in a certain way to get a certain result, and to instead settle into our divine perfection, understand that every way we move, consciously or subconsciously, is the exact way that we're meant to move, and to start to use all these clues to decipher a more accurate story about ourselves and what's unfolding around us. And to me, that's where the change happened. So I focus on not figuring out the how, but I focus my attention on anchoring into my confidence. And along the way, I'm going into my 12th year in business. Along the way, I've obviously seen tons of people start and quit businesses because they didn't identify with this masculine approach to business where you knock on all the doors, you call up all your friends, you pitch everywhere you go. My big feeling crowd, we don't like that. If it's going to make you feel uncomfortable, we're not going to do it, because it's definitely going to make us feel uncomfortable. So when I found this more service-based, this more feminine model of doing business, to where you connect with your audience, you get in touch with what challenges they have, you get in touch with what results they want. And instead of sales conversations, you have connecting conversations that allow them to share with you what they really want, then it just changes the whole business dynamic. It allows you to line up better, and it allows you to have more confidence as you go through these actions. So I started a Facebook community for conscious entrepreneurs, and the first Monday of every month. Yes. So the first Monday every month, I do that 5-day Transform Fear into Confidence challenge. And it's just a brief overview of how shifting your perspective can up your confidence. And when you can get connected to your confidence, action becomes effortless, because we're all sitting here, or a majority of us are sitting here trying to cattle prod ourselves into motivation and action. And if we could just stop being so lazy, or we could just stop being so wrong, then maybe we can finally make this world work, or this business work, or this endeavor work. Where I've kind of flipped that around and said, instead of trying to figure out the how, focus on the self-love, because when you love yourself, you partner with yourself, you naturally follow through. And as you follow through, you build that self-trust. And as you build that self-trust, clarity is a natural side effect. And once you have clarity, confidence is right there with it. So that we can actually focus our energy not on how do we change ourselves to get results in life, but what is the beingness that I am experiencing within myself. And as I connect to the being, then the doings take care of themselves.
Exactly.
And I think that's what the world's ready for, to shift out of this old outdated model of doing in order to get, and to instead step into a space of relaxing and allowing the unfolding. Yes.
Well, and, I think about, from my stories for change perspective, and I think about, what would a world look like if we were kinder to ourselves, and we sent the message to ourselves, and then, innately to the rest of the world, that there's more than one right way to do things, and that there's more than one right kind of person that is allowed to be in the world. And, that all of our experiences are honored, and we are, we should settle into our divine perfection, as you said. I think about, in particular, the populations that I work with are folks with a mental health diagnosis, creative people, and largely women and moms. And these are three sort of groups that, are embroiled with so much, judgment and pain, and feeling othered in the world. Not that everyone in the world doesn't feel othered at some time or place in their lives, but there's just this sort of intensity of it. And, yes, there's something to be said for, pain and challenges being, to some degree a catalyst, but at the same time, how many of our children would be suffering so much less if we were to give all children the message that they are exactly what they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. And I really believe that's a very important endeavor. And for us to realize that these babes come into this world way closer connected to that truth. And it's more for us to just continue to support their full expression in this world and to better manage our own emotions.
Exactly.
So we can force our ways on them a little bit less. And allow some of this tangled up mess that we found ourselves in to just be a little bit easier for them.
Yep.
And I think the shift can happen really quickly. And I really believe that these babes, they come into our lives to teach us how to love ourselves. But again, our society supports us where that's one more person that's on the top of the to-do list. And this power that women hold, the moms of the world, it is really, moms, buckle your seatbelt, because I got chills just thinking this way. It is time for the worth, the value, the recognition, and the empowerment of our moms to come into play.
Yes.
And the world really, really needs that right now. Moms really need that. And we've been this culture of let's prey on the pain to get people to move.
Yes.
And I think it's time for us to recognize that the vast majority of us have hurt enough.
Yes.
And we do not have to keep poking the wound. We can lean into the ease, into the recovery, into the compassion, and we will still be doing this whole service and justice that we are used to using these more masculine expressions too.
Right. And it doesn't have to hurt, and it doesn't have to be hard, and we can love each other and still be, all of whatever it is that we seek to be. It's not a competition.
Right.
I don't have to be better than someone else in order to be, in order to own my worth and value as a human, as a mother, as a woman.
And it's not even about striving to become your best you. It's the simple recognition that in each moment you already are.
Yes.
Now, what are you going to do from here?
Yep.
What are you going to do from here? Yep. And it's like slowing down in order to speed up. And couldn't encourage it more highly. Built a whole practice around it, right? And it keeps me submerged in it. A lot of people are like, how do you think this way? Well, one, I've taken a deep dive for a decade in this direction. Two, not only has it been at the forefront of my own personal life, I've built a business around it. So I stay saturated with this. And that's what I tell people, saturate yourself. If you're looking at something, if you're reading something, if you're listening to something, allow it to be something that supports where you're going, not just a habit that you're continuing. And, just be gentle. Be gentle with yourself, because the more companionship, it's just like any relationship. The more companionship you cultivate within yourself, the more agreeable yourself is going to be in your endeavors. And just like I had mentioned, releasing 45 pounds over a year without feeling like I'm restricting myself, without feeling like I have to be different. What I realized is what I did is that I went a year not making myself wrong.
Right.
I wasn't wrong when I looked in the mirror. I wasn't wrong when I picked up that fork. I started hiding less of myself. I started expressing more of myself. I started taking more responsibility and better stewardship of my emotions. I stopped taking responsibility for others to the massive degree that I was. Right. And as a side effect, I became more fulfilled, more full. Life became sweeter. And as I tapped into that physical reality experience, my body craved sweets less. Right. It wanted to eat less food. So now I've just kind of lived into this space where I'm letting my body lead the way. She decides what I eat. She decides where I move. She decides when I go to sleep. And it's this beautiful partnership and this beautiful level of self-trust.
Right.
That she will guide me and I will be equipped to do it out loud in life. And I can't say that I hit the mark 100% of the time, but I also don't require myself to.
Exactly. That is the key and the point is that, just we are not perfect. We are not supposed to be perfect. And, we can't continue beating ourselves up for.
And ironically, at the exact same time, we are absolute perfection.
Exactly. Yes.
We just have to loosen up our expectations and understand that all these pictures in our mind, these thoughts, these desires, is our intuition really working hard to give us the flash images, to give us an idea of the emotion that we really want to experience, not the physical thing that we want to experience. So as you can connect to the emotion that that physical experience evokes, or that you imagine it will evoke within you, and you use that as your indicator as which direction to go towards life, and you follow that feeling, guess what you will experience in your life, regardless of what it physically looks like.
Right.
That emotion, that experience. So I'm here to say we are powerful beyond our unknowing, and that we are lacking nothing. And even the work that I put out there in the world, nobody needs, because you have the answers within you.
Exactly.
But if you would like to have someone support you in taking that deep dive within yourself and learning to to shift the way that you relate to yourself, to shift the way that you respond to yourself, and better understand that internal guidance system, that's where I can come in and support your journey. Right. And that allows me to be much more aligned with my authentic heart of service, and to be a lot less detached over who takes action and who doesn't. And I focus now just on people feeling good. I want you to feel great about working with me. I want you to feel amazing about not working with me. And right. that is a much different thing than just feeling like I've got to make the sell, or I need more clients, or I hope I say the right thing to the right person.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been just amazing. I so appreciate your time and your passion. You're so passionate. You're so, I could talk to you forever. So thank you so much, Crissy. And last thing, is there one recommendation that you can give to our audience of a podcast that you love, a book that you love, something that inspires you or excites you or challenges you to think differently?
Yeah, absolutely. There is one person who has been the biggest influencer for me over the past couple of years, and his name is Matt Kahn, Kahn, Matt Kahn. Okay. He is, oh my gosh, I get gooey just thinking about him. He's the one who opened this door for me. He's the one that led me down this path of discovering the power of self-love. And I can tell you that as soon as I started integrating a daily active practice of self-love, which I'm going to share with you to be the one step that you can take following this podcast to create some powerful change in your life. When I started to integrate self-love, I took it off that spiritual to-do list, on our way to get stuff. Right. We got that personal development and spiritual to-do list. Love yourself. Okay, check that one off back in, 2007. Keep on trucking, beat myself up every step along the way, but good thing I love myself. Yeah, it's maddening. So when I moved it off of my spiritual to-do list, one and done kind of checklist to my daily checklist,
it made it a part of your life. This is just how I am in the world.
It revolutionized my life. And the changes are so subtle that, I didn't even think that they were happening until they were. And the only thing that I can point to that changed during this time period of my life, the only thing is this one simple, it's so simple. It's ridiculous. It's so simple. It's easy to forget to do. And it's easy to not really respect the power of. But this one thing, it has changed my life, and it has been the stepping stone that everything else was built on. So Matt Kahn, he's amazing. He's got tons of YouTube videos. I also have a YouTube channel that I have been putting content on for the last 7 years. So there is a ton of really powerful content. I actually have several people that tell me, they just pull up my channel and just hit that play button where, it just goes on all day long because they just so sync up with the message that I bring. So I highly recommend checking out both those YouTube channels, Matt Kahn's and my own. And Matt also has a book called Whatever Arises, Love That. And if I were to recommend a book, I would say to look in that direction and to stay tuned, because I'm going to have my first book come out this year. It's going to be more of a practical, very simple, easy to integrate workbook that will help to support shifting your perspective. And I'm going to have a workbook with it. I'm even going to make a deck of cards so you can just kind of draw a card and have that perspective shift for the day. So lots of cool things online for that I'll be having coming on for 2018 and beyond. Okay. So that simple integration step. Now stay with me. And I really recommend, like for me, I felt the effects after day 3.
Okay.
But I say, give it 30 days. Just give it 30 days. That's just a great place to start. So first, there's really no wrong way to do this, but ideally, it's really great to do this first thing in the morning upon waking, or last thing at night before you go to bed. I also really like to do this at any time that I am feeling frustrated, when I am feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling angsty, when I feel that start to come up inside me.
Right.
This is what I do. If I am in a place that I can take a pause, like stop moving, close my eyes, and place a hand on my heart, I do. But again, not necessary. And then I say to myself, I love you. And that's it. While that might not sound like much, let me tell you the tidal wave of awesome that it has unleashed in my life. After about 3 months, I felt this warrior spirit start to awaken inside of me that became my advocate for me. And she spoke for me at times that I used to not speak up. She stopped dealing with a lot of the BS that Crissy was allowing herself to deal with. That self-love took over my life, and it is still taking over my life. And when I realized, I tell my husband every day I love him. I tell my daughter probably 17 times a minute that I love her. Yep. Why would I not be loving the one who is taking me through this entire journey? Because whatever she goes through, whatever she accomplishes, whatever she doesn't accomplish, whatever crap she's got to go through, she deserves my love just as much as anybody else, if not more.
No question.
And that idea of, instead of making myself be, but loving the one who desires to be better, loving the one who's trying so hard, loving the one who's feeling frustrated, I can empathize, I can bring compassion, I can give voice to instead of suppress how I'm feeling. Like this whole misnomer that if we give attention to our negative feelings, we're going to create more negative in our life. Right. No, that is not how it works, y'all. Nope. Anywhere that there is darkness, it means you need to find the light there. And the only way that you will is if you dive into it. So this self-love helped to shift that darkness. It helped me to look at it differently. And I just realized, Matt Kahn says this all the time, no matter what, you always deserve more love, not less. Mm-hmm. And that philosophy, bringing it into my life and bringing it to others, it was just radically healing and radically life-changing.
That's amazing. I always I'll end with, I always ask people that I speak to, or, groups that I work with, what would happen if you were as kind to yourself as you are to everybody else? And it's this radically simple, just like you said, telling yourself I love you. It seems so simple, but it shifts our energy so significantly because we've been taught, we've been conditioned almost subconsciously to hate ourselves.
Yes.
And to be unkind to ourselves, and to send ourselves the message that we're never enough. And that's why things aren't as we think they should be.
Absolutely.
So this
and
message,
especially women and our bodies.
Yes.
So I'm very excited to tap into this more empowered, soft, gentle place within my own physical self, because I know that that's the next trainings that I'm bringing to the table is to reintroduce people to who they are from that divine perspective. And when we can just catch up to the fact that we're not who we were when we started this journey. Yes. When we can get connected to the fact that our soul has assigned this mission to our physical selves. And so we must, like if our soul self trusts us, why shouldn't we trust ourselves? And to be reintroduced and to be able to shift that self-identity to who we are now, then we're more likely to be able to live into and embody the behaviors, characteristics, the habits, the choices of that are more aligned with who we truly are, instead of defaulting back to our old patterns. And I even take my clients, not only through this reintroduction to themselves, I also have a technique of bringing them back so that they can heal their past memories. So they can line up the truth that they know about themselves today to their past self and bring peace and understanding and shift their timeline of their life and shift their their perspective of their whole life unfolding, which brings in massive forgiveness for themselves, for other people, and, massive amounts of healing and just peace of mind and acceptance for all those characters that have been in your life, all the service that has been done to you and all the disservice. And while this never, ever, 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 ever justifies anybody's mistreatment of you, it can at least bring some justice to this misdoing. And I feel like when we can focus our attention there, we're going to be much more aligned to what it is that we're really desiring to experience versus continuing to fight ourselves, fight our bodies, fight this world around us, and think that the power lies in our external circumstances.
In my writing classes, I give they're called re-stories. So it's all about, sort of reframing those stories we tell ourselves.
I love that.
And I do 2 writing assignments in the very beginning of the series, in which I ask folks to take on a 10-minute writing prompt of a person in their lives that they know personally who they feel is heroic. And then 10 minutes later, I ask them to write for 10 minutes about ways in which they are heroic themselves. And it is much more difficult for people to settle into embracing those elements and those things about themselves, because we're boastful if we say that we're good at something, or we are, or we give ourselves praise. And so it's sort of the first step in that self-healing, and that, opening up that door of allowing yourself to see your story differently.
Yeah. And I love that. Because the day that I realized nobody's going to come in and rescue me, that I am the hero of my story, again, just a total game changer.
Changes everything.
I love this conversation, Erin. Thank you for doing what you're doing in the world. It's so needed and wanted and right on time. And I really honor you for taking your time and your energy to connect with us and to bring more of what we have happening out there to the world. So, well done.
Back at you, sister. Keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to connecting again down the road. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody who tuned in and listened. Thank you.